What a finish at the Red Bull Ring. George Russell converted pole into victory after holding off a charging Max Verstappen by just 1.6 seconds, while Kimi Antonelli completed the podium to make it a brilliant day for Mercedes. But while Mercedes celebrated, Ferrari endured a miserable afternoon with poor race pace and a questionable strategy, throwing away what looked like a promising and a most likely podium for Lewis Hamilton, and especially they were starting second and third on the grid. So you look at you look at the start of the race. Obviously, the lights went out, and Hamilton went past Leclerc, and then obviously there was some shenanigans between Leclerc and Antonelli, where Antonelli nearly crashed into the back of Leclerc, which is similar to what he did last year to crashing into the back of Max Verstappen. And he made a mistake in that regard, Antonelli. And when Antonelli obviously there was kind of back and forth between Leclerc and Antonelli towards earlier, and which brought even Max Verstappen into the game, into the battle, and he went past Antonelli, he went past Leclerc. Not only that, it even brought the two McLarens behind Antonelli, where we saw those drone shots. Where I actually liked those drone shots. By the way, I really like it. Especially it changes the direction. It makes it more exciting. The cars moving, battling with, I think makes it more exciting. So I really like those drain shots. So well done, F1 for that. But um, I think, yeah, obviously Anthony made some mistakes towards early on where he had kind of back and forth between him and Leclerc, which brought Verstappen back into the game. Verstappen went past him, and even the McLarens were chasing Antonelli also. So it was not easy. And then after that, I mean, the race strategy, the strategy of Ferrari and the pace of Ferrari was not good at all. I mean, Hamilton was in second, and I think Leclerc was in fourth. I think he was in fourth. Yeah, he was in fourth or fifth, fighting with Antonelli. But obviously, after I think after 20 or 25 laps after that, when it was the second battle, obviously after that Antonelli went past Leclerc, and yeah, like it was after like Ferrari. You have to say they lacked pace, they lacked strategy. And I'm surprised to see how poor they were in terms of race pace because they brought in engine upgrades. They brought in engine upgrades, and if I'm not, I think according to Red Vasseur, because obviously I got it wrong in I think there was a lot of rumors saying that they used it in FP3, where actually Fred Vasseur said they used it for the whole weekend. Not that they used it from starting P3 towards the whole of the weekend. They started from the whole weekend, as Fred Vasseur said, and they used it, and they still lack performance. They lack performance, and they still the gap between them and Mercedes was big. Not big, but like not like close enough. Like it was like between Hamilton and Russell for early on it was like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and you think like why? Like why they brought in engine upgrades and instead they way this behind. Of course, this kind of conditions in as a for Austria track it affects and it affected Ferrari badly. Tire degradation affected them, as you can hear from the Lewis and Charles radio messages. Tire degradation, the hot temperature affected them. Um, I thought the hot temperature would maybe affect Mercedes, but actually it affected Ferrari, especially with the upgrades. And then the strategy to put Lewis Hamilton on soft for the second pit stop was very questionable. Was really really questionable. I really don't get why they put Lewis Hamilton for the second pit stop on the soft. I mean, maybe they tried to go for a three pit stop, and I don't know why. I'm like, when I was watching the Ferrari strategy, I was like, do they think that Austria is a Barcelona or something? Because not every track is like Barcelona. Not every track you can do three stops. And it was baffling. This was baffling. I mean, for the first pit stop when they went early on, when Lewis Hamilton went early on, when he was the first one to pit out of all the other drivers, but he went on the hard. I kind of get it. But at the same time, why did you put a second one for the softs? I didn't get it. That didn't make any sense at all. Didn't make any sense. So and by the way, one pit stop, and people say, oh, one pit stop is a desire. If you went for a one pit stop, or whatever, it will not work, so he has to pit again and again. Like, yeah, but Haja went for a one pit stop. I think he started on the mediums, and he went for the mediums like as much as he can, and he was even chasing Piastri even on the mediums where it was getting older, like 40 lap mediums, I think, something like that. So he went for a one pit stop, Hajar also. So, but at the same time, like, you look at this Ferrari strategy, it was not good enough at all. Not good. Like, the strategy, the pace was not good at all. Why did you put Lewis Hamilton for the second pit stop softs? That didn't make any sense at all. So, and soft, obviously, they're in terms of short term, they're obviously quick and they can make you the difference. But in terms of the long run, the long term, your ties will be finished very quickly. Obviously, if you want to go for the ties you want to play, want to make the long game, go for the hard tires. Why do you go for the softs? And why do you pit for the second time when there was a first safety car? That didn't make any sense. Why do you pit when there's a first safety car? You already pitted. I mean, the hard was when he was on the hards. It was not like he was on the hards for like many laps. I think he was on the horse for what, 10, 50 laps only. So why did you pit for the softs? I really don't get it. Even when he was on the softs, he was struggling to overtake Piastri. So yeah, I mean, Ferrari. I mean, we praised him for the great strategy in Barcelona. But you have to still look at this race and say, why do you try for the pit stop? Why did you go for the softs in the second one? And not only strategy, also the upgrades, the pace in the car. Like, those upgrades, the engine upgrades they brought in was supposed to improve the car, was supposed to make them better, was supposed to make them closer to Mercedes, and instead they made them worse than Mercedes, much worse than Mercedes, much worse than Red Bull. Not even to some extent worse than McLaren in this race only. So how much I try to overtake McLaren. So yeah, like, not good enough from Ferrari, but you look at obviously the battle between the top three. George, Verstappen, and Antonelli. Verstappen was looking very strong. I mean, you look at that battle between Lewis and Verstappen. I mean, this is what Formula One is all about, and I love those battles between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Obviously, it rolls back the years of them fighting, especially in 2021 season, where obviously it was an amazing fight between them, and every week we were watching them to see and seeing them fight every single race. There was a bit of it also the 2021 when obviously the Merc were dominating, but the Verstappen was the only guy who was really challenging the two Mercedes, Hamilton and Bottas. And we saw some good fighting, but 2021, this is where it got really, really, really tasty, especially between Hamilton and Verstappen, and between Mercedes and Red Bull. And it was a great fight. And obviously, seeing them, obviously after 2021, we didn't see a lot of. There was some. Don't get me wrong. There was some confrontations and fights between them in the track. Like, for example, Hungary 2024, Sao Paulo 2022, and this one also. Not confrontation to some extent, but it was a good fight, good wheel to wheel, respectful fighting between Verstappen and Hamilton, wheel to wheel, and obviously seeing the dream shots of fighting between these two makes it even more poetic. Um, and yeah, it was a great fight. Great fight. I mean, Verstappen was saying at some point that when Verstappen, when Hamilton was defending really well, that he should have had a penalty, a clear penalty. I mean, sorry, but we've seen Verstappen do this kind of things before, so, and way worse as well. So I think Hamilton, what Hamilton did, I think he defended quite well. I think he was aggressive, but it was on the limits, and he defended fantastically well. And obviously, there was the second part of the battle between them, but Verstappen managed to overcome him, and he managed to keep this time keep him behind him. And obviously, because obviously there was, if you look at if you looked at the fight between Verstappen and Hamilton, it was kind of what Hamilton was ahead, Verstappen was ahead, Hamilton was ahead, Verstappen ahead, especially at turn 9, where obviously the battery, when you overtake in that turn. When I think when when you overtake that turn, especially in Austria, when you overtake that turn 3, obviously you can make the switch route, and then when you overtake him, obviously there's the turn 9, turn 9 or turn 6, where obviously the battery goes, and then you overtake him, which happened actually at the last turn, or turn 1, for the battle between Antonelli and Leclerc, where battery went very quickly, and Antonelli overtook him. So yeah, but obviously this was in different turns of the track, not the same turn actually. So yeah, and then Verstappen, he was closing on Russell. I mean, we have to say the Red Bull pace and the pace of the car of Red Bull and Verstappen was very, very strong. They were looking very, very quick. It's the first time that actually Red Bull looked very, very serious. Because yes, Verstappen got a podium in Canada, but to be honest with you, they were far away from Antonelli and Mercedes. In this race, they were much closer, and I have to say the pace of the car of Verstappen and Red Bull was very, very strong. And if only they didn't have that rear wing failure in qualifying, maybe we'd have seen. I don't know, but maybe we'd have seen Verstappen like really, really challenging Mercedes to the end, from the start to the end. But obviously, because of what happened in qualifying, he was on the back foot, and he had to obviously climb up. And he climbed up. He had a great race pace performance. He was challenging Russell. He was closing on Russell. I think the gap was between them 1.5, 1.4 seconds. Before the second pit stop, Russell went into the pits early first, and then two laps later, or 3 laps later, Verstappen pitted. And obviously, when Verstappen came out of the pits, the gap was, I think what, 10 seconds. I mean, you look at that. I mean, for sure, Red Bull should have done better, because you cannot go for one stop like, if Verstappen did what Hadjar did, where he went for the mediums as much as he can, right? Then I kind of get it. If he went for the mediums like 40 laps or 50 laps like Hadjar did, I kind of get it. But at the same time, he pitted the first time. He pitted the first time. So if he pitted if he pitted again, he would have been the second time. Like, so I don't think even though GP and Verstappen tried to go for a one stop, but obviously Verstappen said that these tires are dead and he wanted to pit again. Um, in my opinion, like, to try for them to think that one stop could work. Yes, you can take risks at times, and maybe they were waiting for a safety car, maybe. But at the same time, to think like, okay, you can go for one stop, when especially they pitted early before. I think like lap 20 or something like that. I think it was a lap after Hamilton pitted, or 2 laps after. I think it was risky for them. So I think maybe, obviously, for sure, Red Bull should have done better the strategy. Like, as soon as Russell pit, lap after you should pit, or pit before Russell, to have the undercut on Russell. So I think, especially the gap, especially or if Russell's still ahead of Verstappen, at least keep the gaps, similar before they went to the pits, because the gap before they went to the pits was 1.5 seconds, whereas after the pits it was 10 seconds. So I think Red Bull made a mistake in that strategy yeah, obviously. I mean, a lot of people saying that they bottled the win. I don't agree. I don't think they bottled the win. I mean, I do understand why, because they tried it with Hadjar, and they went for the one pit stop, and it worked. But at the same time, they should have also known that tire degradation of Verstappen's car was ending very quickly, and especially Russell pitted first, so they should have pitted the lap after. So yeah, to keep the gaps being very similar, because I think the Red Bull and Verstappen the pace of them was very close to Mercedes, because I thought, when Russell was miles clear ahead of was 4 or 5 seconds ahead of Hamilton, I was like, okay, Russell's, Russell's going to win comfortably, unless there is a safety car or something strange happens. But Verstappen and Red Bull looked very, very strong, even after even after the pits, when the gap was 10 seconds. Verstappen was very closing in and in and in, and he gained a lot of. The gap was getting closer between Verstappen and Russell, and he was gaining all the time. I think like half a second, almost every single lap, between Verstappen and Russell. Verstappen and Russell, sorry, and Verstappen finished 1.6 behind him. Although even though he was close on Russell, Antonelli was also close behind him. I mean, Antonelli, I think 5 or 4 more laps, I think Antonelli would have overtaken Verstappen. Especially Antonelli was looking very very quick, especially in the last 20 25 laps. He's looking very very quick. He was looking very very strong. Early in the race, he obviously had he did some mistakes, but I think early on he was late on last 25 30 laps he was looking very strong. He was closing on Verstappen, and I think like I said 3 or 4 more laps he would have overtaken him. People say maybe he could have also won the race, Antonelli, if there was 10 more laps. Um, I mean, yeah, like maybe. I mean, look, listen. I think if there was like 5 more laps, I think Russell would have still won, but obviously Antonelli would have finished second. If there was 10 more laps, I think Antonelli would have won also. I think Antonelli would have won. Sorry, I think Antonelli would have won and finished second because, in my opinion, Antonelli was the quicker driver in this race. Obviously, Russell won this race because he was the cleaner driver. He read the rules. He didn't mistake the yellow flag by double yellow flag. He took it as a single yellow flag, and that's what one of the key reasons he won in this race was Antonelli started fourth, and obviously he had some things to do with, especially with Leclerc early on, and obviously Verstappen passing him, and the two McLarens were fighting him. So yeah, like I think on pure pace, Antonelli was quicker and was better than Russell in this race. But I think Russell won this race because he put off a brilliant pole position, brilliant lap. He read the rules fantastically well as he did in the qualifying, and in this race he drove smoothly. There was no drama, and he did what he had to do. He didn't like do some crazy things. He didn't do like strange mistakes. And Mercedes, you have to say the strategy of a two pit stops, they did really well, especially having the gap over Verstappen. When it was 1.5, and after the pit stops, yeah, they made Russell pit first, and the gap was very after that was big. After that was 10 seconds. So I think Mercedes and Russell, they did well in terms of strategy, and also Russell did well in terms of holding off charging Verstappen, because Verstappen and Antonelli were closing, and he did really well to hold them off, especially when Mercedes, they were the best. They was the pace team in terms of pace, but not as the gap it would have looked. I thought it would have looked like, and people would have looked like, because if you told me Ferrari would be way off the pace like this, you would tell me, okay, Mercedes is gonna win by like, I don't know, 10 seconds or 15 seconds. But the gap was quite small, especially between Russell and Verstappen. So obviously Verstappen was getting very quick and he was charging, but you have to give credit to Russell because he managed to get the win at the end, and he managed to hold them off, which was not easy, especially like I said, Verstappen was closing, and he did well to hold them off, and also for Mercedes to for the second pit stop they did. So yeah, and very important win for Russell. Like I said, I think Antonio was a quick driver, but I think Russell, won by so, by one of the key reasons strategies, and obviously putting a fantastic pole position, had a good race start, and also read the rules very well, very correctly, which Antonelli didn't do in qualifying. Um, but yeah, it's a very important win for George Russell. Very important win. He's now 40 points behind Antonelli. He's now 6 points clear ahead of Hamilton for the second position. Hamilton is now 46 points behind Antonelli. Russell's 40, sorry, 46 points behind Antonelli, Hamilton, and 40 points Russell on Antonelli. Um, I mean, I still think Antonelli is the favorite to win the championship. I still think, obviously, he's had some ups and downs in the last two races. He was not on the pace of Russell for the most of the weekend in Barcelona. In the race pace, he was better than Russell, but obviously had a unlucky moment with the reliability issue. And then the race, in this weekend, he was mostly better than Russell, in my opinion. In terms of, if you look at all the timings, the practice, and so on, he was mostly better than Russell. But what lost Antonelli winning the race against Russell was, like I said, reading the rules perfectly in whether it's a yellow flag or single yellow flag or double yellow flag for the qualifying, and the race where he had a difficult race start, especially when he had to something he had to do with Leclerc. Verstappen went past him also. So and yeah, um, so that he made some mistakes, but I think generally his pace was fantastic. So yeah, I still think in pure pace, I still think Antonelli should win. Antonelli should still win not still win, but I believe he's the championship favorite. I think 4 points is still, listen. Long race, many races to come, long way to go. 40 points at this stage of season is almost nothing. There's a long way to go, and many things will happen. Many things will come and go. So Russell, he's performed better in the last two race weekends, and he's gonna have to keep it going if you want to catch Antonelli. Antonelli, like I said, he's had difficult two race weekends, but I think in pure pace, if he keeps this good level, especially like I said, even though he had the reputation in Barcelona, in race pace he was better than Russell. If he keeps it going for the rest of the season, and in the crunch time of the season also, because Piastri, if you look at Piastri and Norris last season, mostly Piastri was better for the first 15, 17 rounds, but towards the crunch time, towards the business end of the season, Norris got the better of him. So Antonelli is going to have to keep it going, not only for the whole season, but especially in the crunch time, because in the crunch time, this is where the pressure comes and the difference, and you have to make the difference, and this is where it gets like squeaky bum time. So yeah, I still put Antonelli is the favorite, but for sure Russell is gaining momentum. Russell is getting better. He is having more confidence, and he's sure that he can adapt better. Especially he's for even in this weekend he's complaining about there's some problems in the car, and he's been able to adapt well to the difficult characteristics that is not suitable to him for the car. So well done to Russell, very important win. It's his second win in Austria. He won the first time in 2024, and he won the second time in Austria this year. So yeah, and a very good race pace, very good result for Verstappen and Red Bull. Could have been a win if they maybe done better with the strategy, but generally it was it's very step for sure. Red Bull and Verstappen took a step forward, especially with the upgrades they brought in. It clearly worked. They for sure brought in a step forward, especially Hajar. He had a decent performance, also finishing in sixth. So I'm looking forward to see what Red Bull and Verstappen are going to do next race, especially with the upgrades they've brought in and how Verstappen improved and he was much better in this race. Red Bull generally, I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do in upcoming races. So yeah, and next one is Silverstone, obviously, where it's most likely going to be hot, not potential rain coming. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. George, very important win. Can he keep the momentum, especially in his home race next week? Can he win? Antonelli, and he's had two difficult race weekends, but can he bounce back? Can he bounce back next week? Let's see what happens. Ferrari have to bounce back, especially because they've had a really difficult race in Austria. McLaren, not the best performance for them. They finished fourth and seventh. Very good result from for the two V Cups. They both finished on the points once again. Liam Lawson ninth and Lindblad 10th. Very good, very solid result for them. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you. I wish you have a nice day. See you next time, and goodbye.